So can you even classify it an overland van if you don't have a whole pile of lights on the roof of it? And welcome back to the DIY van build. So how you guys all holding up out there? You working? You staying at home? Self-isolating? What's your story, Morning Glory? Myself? Well, I feel like I preconditioned us for it. So if you're new here, my name's Jeff Dares. This is Dares Drives. And over the past 4 or 5 months, we've been taking this 2019 Mercedes Sprinter van and we've been converting it into a 4x4 off-road roaming home that we can travel the continent in. If you like that kind of stuff, maybe subscribe. So to be honest with you, over the last year since starting this YouTube channel, actually especially over this last 5 or 6 months we've been building the said van, I've had no time to hang out with friends, go partying, anything like that. I've honestly been self-isolating well before we had to self-isolate. We got goals, you know. So our goal for this episode is to get 108 inches of LED lights mounted to the roof of our van. So basically what we have is we have a 50-inch curved light bar, which will go on the front of the van. We have a 50-inch straight light bar that'll go on the rear of the van. And we have 4 individual 2-inch pods, one for each corner of the van. That are gonna run off 3 different switches, but we'll get in more detail about how we hook them up and all those relays and what they're all about as we get further into this episode. So to start this off, as you'll see, with each light bar and pod, they come with a wire attached to them. Obviously, that is not gonna get us from the back of the van all the way up to the front where the actual battery and switches and all that stuff's gonna be. So what we bought is some of this mono-price 12 gauge CL2 rated copper wire. It's 100% oxygen-free copper. So with this wire, we cut off a piece that's long enough to go from the back of the van to the front of the van, about 14 feet worth. Stripped off one end. And now, just like we did with the cameras, we're just gonna solder together the positive, and then we're gonna solder together the negative. And when it's all heat shrinked and all taped up, we are now ready to install our first light on the rear of the van. So if you remember, in our delays video, I had commented that the standard brackets for this light didn't actually fit the top of the van because the top of the van is curved and the brackets were too short in which it would hit the center of the light on the roof before those brackets would actually touch the body of the van. So last week, in our video where we did the security cameras, we installed these brackets on the side so that we can install the security cameras, but we also had this extra bracket with 2 holes on it, in which I said, tune in next week, you'll see why. What we've done is we've taken some of our aluminum again, and we put it in the vise, we bent it up, and turned it into what I'd like to say, these little Z shapes. So with these Z brackets, we're just gonna put our M6 by 20 mil bolts through again. And they're gonna sit just like that on our stand-up post on both sides. See, we did the exact same thing to that side. And now our light fits in there really tight. To bolt this light in through this one hole, we're gonna use the stock Allen key bolt and this little lock washer thing that comes with it. I think what this would kind of be called would be an anti-rotation washer. It's going to go in between the flange and the light. As you'll see, it's kind of knurled on the ends. I don't know if you can actually see that, but on the ends of this it's actually knurled. So this is going to press in between there, and it's just going to stop the light from twisting when we go over bumps and wind and stuff like that. It's going to stop from twisting down or twisting up. And we'll tighten it down real tight. Check it, doesn't that look cool? Yeah. Okay, so now all we do is take all of our wire, run it through all of our zip ties, the whole length of it, and then stick it through one of our cable entry points again, and straight down into the van. Which now brings us to our 50-inch curved light bar that's gonna go on the front of the van. So see it has the exact same length cable on it, and on the front of the van we can use the standard brackets that came with the actual LED lights themselves. So at the front of the van here, you'll see first off, we've had to pull the headliner and all that shelf that we all built at the beginning of the build. We had to pull that all back out to put this in. Because I did call over a friend and we did social distance. We were 6 feet apart. So I got one hole marked on this side here, the passenger side, and I got one hole marked right here, which is the driver's side of the van. They're both the exact same space, top to bottom, left to right. We're gonna do a pilot hole and then put our big hole so that our bolt can go down through. Before I seal it up, I'm just gonna take these brackets, I'm gonna drop them down through so I can get them down and get some bolts on the back side of them to hold them in place. Well, that kind of sucked. I don't have a clue where that went. That actually went down underneath the hood. I gotta move you now. Damn it. And now with both those in place, we can actually take the light bar itself and drop it in so that I can get the perfect placement of how these posts need to sit there on top of the roof. Please don't fall. Stay. Just like that. And how slick does that look? So now to seal these, I'm just going to do one bolt at a time. That way I can do this by myself. I'm going to use our butyl tape like we have on everything else. But instead of using the lapping compound, I'm going to use a polyurethane sealant that's white. Because this is on such a slant, if we put lapping compound on it, it would just all start running down the van and it wouldn't cover what we want. So we had to switch up the sealing technique a little bit on this one. So from underneath the van, we'll take that metal square plate we made. I'll slide that over top of our bolt. Then I'll put our lock washer on and then our nut. Now my thought process for doing this is because it's only one bolt going through there. It's pretty thin tin. So my thoughts are it just adds as a bigger washer. That way, as the wind is hitting that and pulling on it, it's not flexing the body. It's going to have more of a base to distribute the weight or the pull, or however we want to word that. So with that being said, and that's what she looks like. It's still wet right now, but pretty sweet, eh? So now for the wires on this light bar, you'll see coming off of the light bar, it is actually long enough to go straight into our little box that we built and down through our grommeted hole. But that, my friends, that is the end of step number 2. Winning. That brings us to the third and final set of lights, which is our square pod lights that are for the side of the van. So when I've been designing our brackets, I've been designing it with this mounting bracket for these fog lights. So, well, I went and pulled out this other set of hardware and it's completely different. Which could have been really, really, really bad, but we got lucky. So the first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna take these rear brackets using the same bolts that we used before. They fit right into the side. See, just like that. And do that on both sides. We're already ready to put the lights on. So I have both my pod lights ready. You'll see I have added an extension wire to the one already, because we do have to join the two of them together. All 4 of these pods are gonna work off one switch. So these come with 2 tiny little screws with Allen heads, and in the backs of them, you'll see they have those screws there. They just line up, or sorry, nuts. They just line up once you have it up on the vent. So let's bring one of these up there, we'll show you how to hook it up. Okay, so with our light, I gotta find those nuts through this side. What? That was actually really easy. Oh! Take a look from the ground. Oh, man. See? Check it out. All mounted to our bracket. Our rear one. So that's the passenger side there. And that's the driver's side. What? Pretty sweet, right? I freaking love it. And once we have all those wires all cleaned up, looks pretty slick, eh? All into our box. Now we're ready to move to the front pod lights. Now mounting these front corner lights really took some thinking. I want them kind of sitting off the side of the van. Plus, we still have our security cameras that need to go onto the side of the van as well. So I'd come up with a way that I could get both of them on one bracket so we have one bolt hole for 2 objects. So we started with a 2.5 inch wide flat piece of aluminum and cut it down to size. Now I'm gonna find out how I can get it to sit onto here and have the light and the camera mounted. Now I can't do it with one hand, sorry. So I just measured out where that bracket is actually going to sit on top of our thing and made a straight line in front of it where we're going to make our bend so it can contour around the side of the van without just sticking straight out. And before you know it, you got two identical brackets. And then they're ready to be installed. And there she is, look. There's our new bracket with our fog light bracket attached, all sealed and painted just the same way we did everything else, so I didn't have to waste any time with you guys. So as you'll notice, I did tap some holes. So I drilled them and tapped them, and that's for our camera. So on our camera you'll see it has 4 holes here. So we just take a really small screwdriver and unscrew it. I can't do it with one hand, but once you unscrew them all, so you'll be able to pull the base off, and you have this piece, okay? So with this piece, I'm sorry, it's really hard to show you guys this stuff sometimes. Hey, you should be able to see that. Now basically what we're going to do is I have these little screws that are just a little 1/2 inch long that fit right into these base bracket holes now, and we'll screw right into those holes that I put into our new little bracket. But you get the point. See? I'll put the 4th one in because I just dropped it on the ground. But I'll put the 4th one in, and now our bracket's on, and our camera is going to be able to sit right on top of there. Bada bing, bada boom. Now, let's put the fog light on. Now, installing the front fog lights should be pretty straightforward. As you see, they've given us these tiny little 1/2 inch long little bolts, and we got 2 screws on the other side of this. So we're just going to put right through this side track, which would probably be much easier if I had smaller fingers. Let's start with the other side. Okay, I am going to pull out one major design flaw in this thing though. Where that last bolt goes, right there. This tiny little thing right here. They've made it so it's right where the cord comes out. So you can actually get your fingers in there. Crazy. But once we got that figured out, you'll see the wires are all complete. So we used our looming just like we did at the back. It goes all the way across, tied down. Everything's nice and tight. And then goes into our box. So now, all we gotta do is seal the box up. And how clean does that look, eh? Yes. That's it. We're done for the roof, my friends. Now let's go hook up those relay switches. Whew, this is starting to feel like the job that never ends, let me tell you. I am beat, man. Climbing up those ladders, my feet, my legs, my back. Sorry, I'm not complaining. Now we're moving on to the wiring harness. So this here is where we have our negative that goes to the negative, our positive that goes straight to the battery, and our relay, which is very important. So this is a 12 volt 40 amp relay. You need those for when you're using switches. This side on the other end, this is the part that'll plug into your lights. And then of course on this is just our simple little switch, on and off. So we did get 3 of these, one for the front bar, one for the rear bar, and one for all 4 pods. I'm only gonna show you how to hook up one because they're all exactly the same. It's pretty straightforward. So we're gonna take that into the van, and this is all gonna get set up underneath the driver's seat area of the van. So down inside here, you'll see I already have 2 relays set up, okay? And inside this little part right here, you pop it up, and this middle is a constant power. You can see I already have 2 power lines going to it. What that means is that even with the van off, I'll still be able to flick a switch and be able to turn it on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill one more hole. So just like I showed you on our wiring harness earlier, we'll take our relay and we'll take our ground. We'll put them together. I'm going to put the bolt through our hole. And I'm going to mount that relay and ground through the back side over top of that bolt. Okay. Now you see we got 3 relays, 1 for each switch. Then we're going to take our wires that plug into the lights and I'm going to shove them underneath here. There she is. So now you'll see on the actual wires that are coming in from the roof, so they come in from there and the back, because these are the pod lights. I have clips for the positive and clips for the negative, which if I can hold you properly, it's literally just going red to red, black to black. And now we gotta hook that power wire up. How I'm gonna let you see that is beyond me. But basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unbolt this middle wire, and we're gonna take the red wire that has the fuse on it. Okay, they all have their low 15 amp fuse. And we're gonna hook that red wire onto that post. And there she is, all back together. You would honestly never even know I was into that thing before. Clean as a whistle, my friends. But now we're ready to turn some fog lights on. You want to see that happen? It's gonna be bright. Now I am starting to pull the dash apart, and because these switches that I have up here right now are gonna go down into here. But that's gonna be for another video, because there's a lot of work to that, and there's some other things we want to do at the same time. So let me show you though. So if I flick this switch, you'll see the light comes on and the lights out there come on. You flick this switch, the light comes on and the lights out there come on. And then I flick this switch, the light comes on, and so does the light outside. And if I put all three of them on, we have all 6 lights all lit up on the van. Pretty cool, right? And that's it, my friends. That's another project completed, another video in the books, and we're moving forward to the next step. So, if you made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, maybe think about doing so. I don't know, no pressure, you do you. If you have subscribed, thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course we will see you next Sunday. Perfect.